Well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's Automotive Fleet webinar, Smart Tech in Motion, Lessons from Power Fleets, presented by Fleetio. I'm Shelley Mika, a contributing writer for Automotive Fleet, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. We're going to try to address them all at the end during the Q&A session, but if we don't get to yours, you'll be contacted by email afterward with a response. So today I am joined by two fantastic guests. Unfortunately, one of our speakers couldn't make it today, but nonetheless, I'm here with Abby Bruner, who is the operations manager for Trantham Equipment, and Dan Simpson, manager of product marketing for Fleetio. So thank you guys so much for being here. Before we get into the presentation, I want to get to know you a little bit. So Abby, if you don't mind starting and giving us a little bit of background on your fleet and what you do in your role.
So we are Trantham Services. We're at Alexandria, Alabama. I've been in business since 1975. Started out as just a small little farming operation, and we have grown really in the past probably 15 years. We've grown tremendously into feed haul. So we do dry bulk, chicken feed mostly, and we have about 350 pieces of equipment. We actually manufacture our own trailers with another side of our company. So we've kind of jumped into the whole thing. We just went at it really from every side of it. And mostly run Peterbilt's, Kenworth's, but that's pretty much about what we are.
And you guys have a lot of shops too, right? Can you tell me a little bit about those?
We have 8 shops in Georgia and Alabama. Our main shop being in Alexandria, and we do everything from front to back, top to bottom, total trucks, rebuilding engines, counterbores, you name it on a truck, we can fix it. Nice.
That's some tough work right there. Well, thanks, Abby. Dan, you're here as our smart tech expert. Tell us a little bit about Fleetio and what you do for the company.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. It's great to be here. So Fleetio is a cloud-based fleet management software company, and our mission is to help organizations track, analyze, and improve their fleet operations. We do that in a few ways. We help them centralize their data, digitize processes, and automate manual tasks. We're an established company. We were launched in 2012, and today Fleetio helps more than 7,500 fleets worldwide. So we're in over 100 countries today, and we're talking about fleets with anywhere from 15 assets through to tens of thousands of assets. So we serve them all. I'm, as mentioned, a manager on the product marketing team, and what I do day to day is speaking to incredible fleet managers like Abby, really understanding the problems that they're looking to solve, and then making sure that we're building the right solution to help them do that.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, and we're going to get into more about automation today, and I think people are going to be really surprised at how many tech advances there have been that can just make a fleet manager's life so much easier. You know, I've spoken with lots and lots of fleet managers in my time, and none of them have ever said, I got too much time on my hands. They're always like, I'm so busy and just have a million things on their plate. So I think this is going to be a valuable webinar for that alone, if not nothing else. So, well, thanks, Dan. Appreciate you both being here. Okay, so before we get into the tech, let's start talking about some of the things that inspire tech to be developed, that, fleet manager goals, like inefficiency is no good. So, there's still a lot of fleets that are managing with paperwork and not slowing down their operation. Fleets that have more manual maintenance processes, and so they're getting unplanned breakdowns because they're not keeping up with maintenance. Obviously, trucking fleets dealing with compliance, and that takes a whole bunch of time on its own. So, Abby, I wanted to ask you, what did your operation look like before you started using automations and Fleetio? Like, did you encounter speed bumps like this?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess we've been with Fleetio for probably a little over 2 years now. And honestly, at first, when I first kind of took over our shop foreman position, we were spending about 80 hours a week just keeping up with paperwork and scheduling services. And I mean, it was so much time. By the time we got done with the week before, we were starting on the next week. So it was kind of one of those things, like every Thursday we started a new week for the next Thursday. You know what I'm saying? And it took a whole week before we could get that done. I mean, Wednesday afternoon, we're finally like, okay, we're done. And then Thursday morning comes and we're starting right back over. So with Fleetio, I spend about 10 minutes every morning scheduling our trucks. So you think about that, like all that 80 hours worth of, paperwork to go through is now cut down to one person. Once that program is built, one person spends about 10 minutes a day just scheduling trucks in. And I mean, our service compliance has went from about 60% to about 90% now. So there's no way before to keep up with that much stuff, and now we're 90% and we're keeping up with probably 4 or 5 times more service reminders than what we were.
That's amazing. And considering what you said about how your company has grown so quickly, I imagine that you need that kind of technology to help you keep up with future growth as well. So instead of going from 80 hours to 120, it's like 10 minutes to 20 minutes.
Right. That's exactly right. And it makes it a lot easier because I've got, with the people underneath me and training them how to do it, it's just so much easier to teach them this way than it was to train them how to do what I was doing. So just in the past year, I've kind of came out of the shops now. Now I'm over all 8 shops. So I'm able to go out and train all of my shop foremen how to do this. And really, I don't even actually have to do it myself anymore. Now I'm at a point where, I've got, a couple guys knocking it out in, first thing in the morning, and we're done. And then I can go back and look at their schedules. And there's different ways that I've looked at through Fleetio to even schedule them too, like your future forecasting, which we do not use yet, but just something else to look at. That's just different ways to schedule.
Yeah, that's great. I bet that takes a lot of stress off of you also, especially if you're going to go on vacation or something. Like, how am I going to get this all done and be gone?
Yeah,
and
no doubt.
Yeah.
No, that's for sure. I mean, it used to be I'd go on vacation. It'd take me 2 weeks to catch up,
which just ruins
and
the
then
whole
I'm trying to catch
vacation.
up. That's right. I know for sure. And now I'm able to, which I'll work I'm just one of those that I'm going to work a little bit on vacation anyway. So, I take a peek at it, but it's, 5 or 10 minutes of just kind of looking over it, making sure it's all getting done right, by other people. But other than that, yeah, I come back to work and, instead of spending 2 weeks, I might spend a day trying to catch up,
Yeah. What a huge change. You can literally do your
Yes.
scheduling with a pina colada in your hand.
That's right. No doubt.
Well, let's go to the next slide and start talking about some of this technology. So, I'm sure that a lot of folks in the audience have had similar experiences with inefficiencies and having to spend a lot of time on tasks that they would love to reduce. And today's smart technology can help you do some of that, as Abby was speaking about. So just from a high level, automation can help, obviously, automate data entry, workflow approvals, can improve compliance, that, just using tools that can keep you on track with that. Take back your time, like Abby has done. And, when you eliminate inefficiencies, you can also eliminate hidden costs and even not so hidden costs. I mean, just talking to you, Abby, it's like you're talking about 2 full-time employee salaries right there that either could be eliminated or that those people could do, other work that can add more value to the fleet. So, Dan, as our smart tech expert, I want to ask you, what are some of the ways technologies can help fleets run more efficient operations?
Well, firstly, Abby, you're a hard act to follow. I think that you just highlighted quite a few of the use cases there. What we see a lot is what Abby was talking about, which is just being able to pull data from everywhere, records from everywhere, and having it in one place. And so that's things like your telematics, fuel card, all your maintenance data, so invoices from your outsourced providers, also like being able to pull them together with your work orders if you're doing work internally, and being able to get that complete picture in one place is, I think, one of the really big things, because then fleets can start to get to total cost of ownership. And when all of that's just automatically coming into one place, it makes your job a lot easier. You're not having to go different places and look for different things. And I think one of the other things is the automation of small tasks. One of the big things that I hear over and over again from fleet managers is just the fact that they are really managing people as much as the fleet is people, and it's collaboration with people, it's communicating with people, following up, making sure that people are doing things, also that they're just aware of things. And when Abby was talking about going out and speaking with his techs and they're able to pick things up really quickly, what I thought about was what a customer said to me recently, which was just the fact that by automating a lot of collaboration and communication, you're able to stop your techs focusing on that $20 an hour data entry and just data management, moving figures around, entering things. And then they can pick up a wrench and they're really focused on those $60 an hour preventative maintenance activities.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that lets you just get through the work quicker as well and increase uptime. So yeah, that seems super valuable. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm sure there are folks in the audience, and hey, listen, I agree. AI and technology can be a little bit scary. Like, can you trust what ChatGPT tells you? If you bring on new technology, does it fit within your existing workflows? Or is it going to cause a whole bunch of work to bring it on? And the last thing that fleet managers need is like one more tool that they're not going to use, right? So, Abby, before you used Fleetio, did you have a certain level of skepticism about technology? Were you feeling these kinds of things that I just talked about, or others?
It wasn't me more than it was my bosses above me. It was more of trying to get them on board. Sometimes when you get with some of the younger groups, the younger people are more kind of tech savvy. So you'll kind of notice they're more likely to jump into something like this. And it's just once you put it in front of them, the I don't know what generation that is, but the generation ahead of, say, me, the 55, 60 and older, the tech just wasn't quite there, and they didn't really grow up with it. I was kind of at the beginning of when all this tech was coming out. So for me, I was more, I wasn't skeptical. I was ready to jump in. It was just getting everybody else on board. And once I did that, and once they've seen it now, was it tough at the beginning? Yes, because there's, you got to set it up.
Sure.
But there's positives to it. You spend a little more time here, and it saves you time later on. So really, I wasn't scared of it. I was ready to jump in, and I'm glad I did. Of course, if I'm saving that much time, I'm glad I did, because now I'm able to spend more time, doing the things that really need to be done and working with, like Dan said, working with the people instead of having to deal with this side of it.
Yeah, for sure. Dan, do you hear any objections to technology, or what kinds of things do you hear when people are trying to convince their bosses to bring it on, and what kind of coaching do you give them?
Well, I'll start out by saying what Abby said. I agree with that. That's what we hear. I found fleet managers are problem solvers, and they have very real world problems, and they're looking for anything that can help them solve those issues. And so typically, I think when talking to management, it's all about ROI and being able to clearly communicate what the value is going to be to them in very clear terms. So things like uptime, it can be savings, just visibility into total cost of ownership. It's really having those conversations and making sure that you understand what is motivating those people that are in leadership at your company. What are those things? So that's typically what we focus on. And I think on the other side, fleet managers are also dealing I hear it a lot with drivers, probably more than technicians, but you can be dealing with a workforce as well that is not looking to adopt new technology. And so we've invested a lot of time. A couple of years back, spent a lot of time going out and spending time with drivers to understand around things like inspections, how we can reduce friction and make sure that those day-to-day tasks, which are critical for a fleet to run smoothly and really efficiently, that they're things that are easier for people to complete, and just removing those barriers. So we've come from paper inspections, now we have digital inspections. That removes that time lag or just the complete gap of that inspection, making it to a fleet manager or a shop manager so that they understand the current status of the fleet. Nowadays with digital inspections, that can be done in a few minutes, and the onus isn't on the driver anymore to communicate that or leave the sticky to report the issue. That's just automatically pulled through for the shop manager or the fleet manager to be able to see in Fleetio. And so I think that for fleet managers, it is just learning how to best communicate with those two groups and making sure that they're being set up for success. I think I've found fleet managers to be incredible partners to build new solutions to solve problems, because they're aware of what they are and they're always looking for ways to improve their operations.
Yeah, I love what you said about fleet managers being MacGyvers. I couldn't agree more. Sorry, Abby, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, I agree with that. And one of the hardest things was just change. Not just with, our upper management, but with a lot of techs. We were so used to writing everything down on paper, we done it. I think we do it a little different. I'm not really sure how everybody else does it, but I actually give out, every tech we have has their own tablet. And that's what they use to put that on there. They don't have to use their phones. We give out tablets. Some of them use the app version. Some of them use the internet web version. But after it took us about a month, and after about that month, they were, I don't think I could talk them into going back to paper now. It's just the way, the change was tough, but even with some of my older techs, they're even that way too. I mean, they're just like, look, don't hand me a piece of paper and a pen, let me pull out my tablet, but not only that, when you was talking about DVIRs, those are, we implemented that about the beginning of this year, where we created that inspection form, pulled it right off of Fleetio's report. Or if you look, Fleetio's, they have some inspections that's preloaded on there. And then we built it off of our company. So we used the main points. We were able to add, specific things that we wanted to add to it. And then when these drivers fail at inspection point, it's automatically, put on that truck. So it's as an open issue, and they're set at whatever you want to set them at: low, medium, high, critical, so which is that's very helpful.
Sorry, go ahead, Dan. Didn't mean to interrupt there.
I was just really curious when you said it took about a month, Abby, for you to make that change in your shops, and you did have a little hesitancy. What was your approach to rolling it out when you were rolling out a new process in the shop? Because I know it is a big change for a lot of technicians.
So I took about 6 months before I rolled it out, just for myself, because I wanted to learn how to use it. And I wanted to be able to, when they came to me and asked a question, I wanted to answer. I wanted to be able to answer it right then and not so much have to dig for it. So I took about 6 months, and I just studied and I was putting in work orders, creating work orders and completing them and putting in parts and all that stuff, and just teaching myself how to use it. And I will say this, this not really is getting off subject, but it is a little bit. During that 6 months, the customer service that Fleetio has was tremendous. I mean, I don't know that we could have picked a different company to go with that has better customer service than Fleetio. From being able to call them or being able to just go to that help center at the top of the screen, and then you have the community kind of board there that kind of has questions and answers in there too. It was probably helped me more than anything. But once I learned how to do it, I mean, that was my whole thing with rolling it out was, if you got a question, you need to come to me. Let's not guess on this. Come to me. Let me show you how to do it right the first time. And then, it took, like I said, took about a month, maybe a little over a month. And I still have people come ask me questions, even after 2 years, some guys that's been using it as long as I have, but all they're doing is creating work orders, putting parts in. They're not going as deep as I do into it. So They still have some questions, but they're quick and easy, questions to answer, really.
Yeah, I love that rollout strategy that like you learned it like the back of your hand and then you were the point on it. Yeah. And I'm sure that was a tremendous help to your technicians.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide. And, what I love about talking about this technology is that we immediately get into like all the benefits because they're so apparent. And so, I just wanted to kind of go over some of the ways that it can be beneficial when it's used properly. So, when you're eliminating those manual inputs, you're reducing errors. When you have all of the data at hand, you can make decisions faster. We know you can save time, lots of time. And it can also, benefit your budget in terms of, any efficiency lots of times has that cost benefit to it. And so, Dan, I know we've already talked about some of the great things you guys are doing at Fleetio, but can you share any other tech advancements that are going on right now and how they can lead to benefits like these?
Yeah, one of the ones that jumps straight to mind is our automations builder. So automations in Fleetio, you can create automations workflows that really handle those small repetitive tasks. So those day-to-day things that may be communication between people, changing the status on a vehicle, spinning up work orders, and you can customize it to your fleet. So you can set it up. It's for anyone who's familiar with automations builder, it is triggers, conditions, and actions. And what we've seen is fleets using that, really tackling small problems first and setting up workflows so that those day-to-day tasks where before there could have been issues with consistency. So for example, communication, we've already touched on that, just messages get lost. It's just people, I do this all the time. If it's not written down, I will forget to do things in a timely manner. And so one of the things I was chatting to a customer, and this is an automation that a lot of fleets have set up, is whenever an issue is flagged on a vehicle, so that may be, for example, when an inspection is completed and it fails one of the line items in the inspection, you can automate it so that vehicle status is marked down. And I was speaking with a customer and they said that this was a really big problem for them previously, where what would happen was an issue would be identified, but it wouldn't be passed on with their old solution. It wouldn't automatically be passed through the system. So the fleet manager who was scheduling vehicles to go out to different jobs wouldn't know that there was an issue with the vehicle. And as a result, they would have work that they would have to cancel because they didn't have vehicles and they weren't able to plan in advance because there was just a lag in that communication. And using our automations workflow, they've actually been able to set it up so every time that an issue is flagged, they have set conditions. So it needs to be an issue that they've identified as critical. When that is flagged, the vehicle will automatically have a change status to down, and they can also trigger comments to go to the fleet manager so that they're aware, they receive a notification, and then they can take action on that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then in doing that, you're preventing those unplanned breakdowns and all the costs that come along with those repairs. And when you multiply that over multiple vehicles, I mean, those costs add up so quickly. Abby, I know you're using automation in your fleet. First of all, does your leadership now see the value completely? And just tell us a little bit more about how you use those automations and how they've helped you.
Yeah, 100% they see the value in it. And it didn't take probably about a year, really not even a year. We had actually totaled a truck and had something happen with it. And of course, the lawyers are wanting, all the information, and they want to go back 6 months. So anytime you have anything like that happen, and there's a lawsuit involved, your lawyers, their lawyers, your lawyers, they want 6 months of information. You know what I'm saying? So it's as easy as a click of a button. Go to reports, go 6 months back, and you're able to completely file, print out a report. And the first time he ever done that was, he came to me and said, "Hey, I need all this information on this truck. I don't need it today. If you can just get it to me in the next week." Well, in 5 minutes, I emailed it to him. And that was the thing. He was like, "All right, that right there is worth it by itself. We should have done this a long time ago." So that's kind of what we get there is, it's real nice. It's as far as the investment goes, well worth it for sure. Not just in that way, but there's tons of other ways. And Dan was talking about the automations part of it, opening, closing work orders with automations, and letting drivers and managers know that trucks are active, or they're in the shop, or they're completed, just by setting an automation that when you open or close a work order, it automatically it automatically puts that status back into active, or whatever you want to name it. You can name those whatever you want, whether you want to name it if it's in the shop or, broke down, or it doesn't really matter. You name it what you want. But not just the fleet managers, but drivers can see that too. What I used to get was all the time was, is my truck ready? Is my truck ready? Is my truck ready? And now it's like, hey man, check Fleetio. It's on there. If it's inactive, it hadn't been pulled in the shop yet. If it's showing that it's in the shop, then it's not ready, but we're working on it. If it's waiting for a part, you can set all that, with an automation that nobody has to sit there and even click the button. It just automatically does it. And that's just a whole nother time savings opportunity you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And like so many fewer phone calls that you have to answer.
Yes, for sure. For 100%. Yes.
Yeah. So you're freeing up even more time. I think we should add a couple weeks to your vacation just because, hey, you put this in place, you earned it, right?
I like it. That's right. I'll
we'll
take
get on
it.
a call with your boss after this.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good.
So let's go to the next slide and just talk about what it looks like to, adopt some of this technology. We've talked a little bit about, Abby, how you've implemented it, but I understand that it might seem like something that's daunting to fleet professionals. So, Dan, talk to us about why starting with the problem is a great place to start. Like, how does it make it easier to take that first step into technology?
The first thing I think of is when you start with the problem, the values there. So there's so much new technology that comes out. You can spend time exploring it, but there's so many things that we see out in the world, whether it's work or in our personal lives, that, yeah, it looks nifty, but is it actually going to give me ROI? And I think when you start with an existing problem, the values there. It's worth investing the time, as Abby did with the digital work orders. It's worth investing the time to get to know it, because this is going to change the way that you work. It's going to provide you with value. And one of the things at Fleetio that we're prioritizing right now is how you can get all your fleet data into one platform. And one of the ways that we're doing that is using AI so that you can pull in fleet maintenance data, replacing manual processes before. So things like invoices, we are automating that. And it not only is starting to give our customers better data quantity, but it's also improving the quality. And what we're hearing is that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. You need to trust your data to be able to make great fleet decisions and to be able to make decisions that you can trust and that people are going to buy into. And so what we're really focused on is starting with getting high quality data in so that you have that complete picture of your fleet, and then you can start to use that to make decisions that are going to optimize your operations.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, for those in the audience, if you are looking for some prompts to find those problems, I'm sure you already know what they are. But, you know, just thinking about like, where are we performing repetitive tasks? You know, what's being delayed, what's getting missed, what's having to be re-entered into different platforms, you know, what tasks could be automated, and also, of course, like what's the cost of doing it the way that we're doing it? You know, what are the opportunity costs of not using the technology? So yeah, I think starting with the problem makes sense. It reminds me a lot about telematics, you know, and yes, I'm old enough to remember when telematics first came on the scene. And, you know, it was like, how do we even know what to do with this technology? And it's like, well, what are the problems that you're having? How can we use this technology to solve them? And I think, you know, as technology advances with the use of AI and generative engines and large language models and all of that, it's going to solve a lot more problems the way that telematics has evolved over the years. Let's go to the next slide. So speaking of generative AI, so you can just like use ChatGPT to run your fleet, right? No, don't do that. Absolutely not. So yeah, you can't just like type in a problem like, you know, how do I make my maintenance workflows faster and easier, and ChatGPT tells you how to do it. Dan, what are some of the pitfalls you've seen? Like, have you seen customers who are using ChatGPT for better or worse? Why would you caution fleet managers against going that route?
I think the number one thing that I would caution is just that ChatGPT is designed to give you answers. And for anyone using it, it does hallucinate. And I think that's a very different, it has a very different focus to what we're seeing from a lot of fleet managers, where they really need accuracy. They need, when we're talking about compliance, that's not something that we can even have like 90% confidence in. There needs to be that surety. So whenever using ChatGPT and tools like that, they are fantastic tools. It is number one, just making sure that you trust the data going into it. And then it's also making sure that you double check what the results are. You need to invest that time to not just take it as a given. Don't throw it into a slide deck or into a report. Make sure that you're working back through it, because it's not a tool that is designed for the accuracy that fleets need.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's also pulling from things that already exist. And so may not be taking into account the latest information. And tell me just a little bit more about what you mean by hallucinating results, because I love that characterization of it.
Yeah, so when I'm speaking about that, it's just pulling numbers or adding things in that aren't relevant. You touched on it. It is pulling things from different sources, and it doesn't know what you do unless you tell it what you do. And you really have to build specific parameters to try and, I guess, pull the focus in and allow AI to do its job. And the other thing that I would say that is super important is just the fact that that data that you put in, you have to be so careful because it is proprietary information from your company. And when you're entering it into any type of AI, there's a high likelihood that that's going to pop up and surface for other people or be data points that other companies can use. So there's just a whole lot of risk that goes with that.
Yeah, and you spoke about bringing data from various sources into a single platform so that you're managing your fleet from a single pane of glass. But in addition to that, you have that single source of truth, and you know that the data you're working with is accurate and you can rely on it.
Yeah. I think that at Fleetio, we're really focused on building solutions that align with the goals of fleet and operations managers. So the way that we incorporate AI takes all the things that I've discussed into account. We know that accuracy is so important. And so when we're using AI to bring data into your fleet management solution, we're doing that with that front of mind. We also know that the outputs, it's not just small amounts of money being spent when you're looking to invest in new vehicles, when to replace them. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. And so making sure that there's that really solid foundation where you can trust that data, and then also making sure that any insights and recommendations are formatted in a way that's really easy to consume and aligns with the way that you do business today.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the next slide. I think we've covered some of these things about how, AI and automation solutions can really be tailored to fleets. Are there any other examples that you have, Dan, in terms of, comparing ChatGPT with the way, purpose-built solutions are for fleets using this type of technology?
I think one of the big differences we hear about is when you are having to go to an external source, it's splitting up your data again, and it's not pulling things in where you can see it all in one place. So you don't get that kind of context. What we're really focused on is injecting AI into your current workflows, and so that they help you work a lot quicker. And so using AI, for example, to pull in invoices into Fleetio, was talking with a customer. They've cut the amount of time that it takes for them to enter that data in Fleetio in half. And what that's allowed them to do is they've started to pull in data from before they were using Fleetio, and they're going back through those invoices and having a much better picture of their fleet. And so they're able to make better decisions as a result of that.
That's a great example. Let's go to the next slide and talk about next steps. Like, what do you do after you've identified the problem? So, starting with a small pilot is a great way to just kind of dip your toe in the water. We always talk about getting input from others that are affected by the technology, who will use it or who are approving budgets for it. Obviously, training is part of it, setting benchmarks and using what works, and then looking for the next problem to solve, right? So do you feel like, Dan, that implementing this kind of technology is similar to the way that, fleets in the past have implemented telematics? Do you feel like fleets who have been through that process will kind of already have a sense of how to do this, or how does it compare?
I think my answer to comparing it to telematics is thankfully not. I think that kind of undertaking is huge whenever you're talking about rolling out not only software, but hardware. There is so much more change management that is involved in that. And I think that one of the really incredible things about AI and automation making their way into fleet workflows is the fact that it's intuitive. It reduces complexity. It's not going to increase complexity because it is able to take tasks that may have been really time consuming, repetitive, and it's able to do those automatically for you. So it's removing a lot of the barriers that fleet managers and shop managers have had, where they want to be spending time doing things like planning, focused in different areas, but they've had to really focus attention on little things. And what we're seeing with AI and automation is that it's giving that time back so that they can focus on the bigger picture and really start to plan a whole lot more. I'd be really curious to hear about Abby's approach to it as well.
Yeah, Abby, you've talked a little bit about how you've implemented it. Maybe can you tell us about, how anything more about that, but then as well, like what's the next problem you're working on?
Yeah, so really it's kind of how, Fleetio kind of just sends out these new features. When you open up Fleetio, your own dashboard, the top right corner it's flashing a new feature. You know what I mean? And that was kind of one of my things. I love that part of it because I'm able to go through some of the things that may not really pertain to me, and I can kind of wash them out. And then there's a lot of new features. Automations was kind of one of them. That basically I just kind of opened up the new feature and was like, wow, that's really, that looks like it's really helpful, and that's going to save me even more time. So it was just kind of another one of those things where I kind of dug into it and wanted to see how it worked. I mean, it's step by step, you know what I mean? Like, you go to that help center and it just shows you step by step exactly how it works. And that's really how I just implemented it. And I was like, well, let's try this out and see how this works. And it was so easy to set up, and there's more stuff on there that can be, that I can implement, but I really haven't had a whole lot of time to dig into a whole lot further yet, but I have looked at a lot of the stuff, and it's coming.
Yeah. Dan, I know that you guys have some exciting things planned down the road. So any of those you can tease to us, or is that all still private information?
I think the things that I would tease is just the fact that we are investing in AI and really looking at it to improve the way that fleets are able to get data in, improve the quality of that data. And then on the insights recommendation side, really providing more visibility. We recently released advanced analytics, which gives fleets like business intelligence type insights within Fleetio. So you can do that all in one platform. So we are really focused on building that strong foundation, which allows fleets to understand total cost of ownership and then providing those recommendations to help them optimize their operations.
Love that. Exciting things to come.
Yeah, and look, I can't speak enough about the customer service. I know, and even with the automations, I did when I did start the automations, I did have one issue where something was going on, and it was as quick as, make a phone call. They jumped on, got it quick. It took them about 5 minutes to figure out what was going on, and it was fixed. So just the customer, I really can't say enough about Fleetio's customer service. Just a great company to do business with.
That makes all the difference. That's fantastic to hear. Let's go to the next slide. So we've talked qualitatively about the benefits of this type of technology, but Also, a recent survey showed that sort of our quantitative data about the benefits. So 38% of Fleetio users cut manual data entry. They freed up 16 and a half hours per month for other tasks. As we've talked about, that number can be a lot higher, especially with new features coming out. They achieved up to 90% on-time maintenance compliance. Abby, you've seen that happen on your end. And then gained full visibility across fleet systems with integration. So again, going back to that idea of single pane of glass. I know that we talked a little bit about the number of phone calls that you aren't having to answer these days, but can you talk us through just like why you're getting less phone calls, or any other benefits you've seen as a result of automation?
And I mean, that's exactly what it is automation. I mean, it's because when you have something that's, automations is automatically doing things for you. You know what I'm saying? It's just stuff that, it's things that I don't have to do that I would have normally typically had to complete that task by myself. Mm-hmm. From phone call to saying, hey, your truck is ready. And then you got the fleet manager calling the driver and saying, hey, your truck is ready. So it's not just the phone calls between myself or my shop foreman and the fleet managers, but it is the phone calls between truck drivers and their fleet manager. There's so many more than just, it's so much more than just me that's saving time in this. There's multiple people in this that's saving time. And time is money, and if you're cutting your time down, then when we're saving money all by itself right there. So, yeah. That's a big help for us. I'm already on the phone enough through the day. If I can cut out a couple hours out of the day just answering and saying, your truck's ready, you're making a phone call and saying your truck's ready, then there's just so much more time for me to accomplish more tasks that I need to be working on.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple slides left, and I want to make sure to leave some time for Q&A. So let's go to the next slide. And, it's once you automate one thing, then the question is, what's next? And, some of the things that are coming down the pike are, AI-powered predictive maintenance schedules, real-time compliance alerts, automated parts ordering, imagine that, integration with OEM systems and other fleet-related software. Dan, tell us, how close are we to getting these amazing advancements?
I personally think we are very close. We are there for many of the things. And I think if we were to talk about it as a percentage, like what does it look like to have absolute total cost of ownership? We are on that journey right now. And I think that may be for the 1%, there could be a few percentage at the end that we'll get to, but I think that this shift is really significant. Similar to when we first saw fleet management processes being digitized for the first time, I think we're going to see really quick acceleration, and things like AI-powered predictive maintenance schedules are going to be things that customers are seeing in the near future. I think that is realistic. We are already at a stage where with the current data that fleets have, they're able to make decisions like communicate with external vendors and let them know these are the parts you need to have on hand, because we are seeing these trends, maintenance trends with our vehicles. And so to reduce downtime, we need you to keep these parts on hand so that when our vehicle hits your shop, you're ready to go and we can get it back on the road. And I think that's really going to accelerate, and we're in for an exciting next 2 to 5 years.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So let's go to the next slide. And before we get too excited about all the things coming up, let's just talk about, what Fleetio does for its customers today. And I think we've already covered a lot of these. So just a really easy to use platform, that all-in-one visibility, insights in real time, and then proven ROI. And the ROI I want to talk just a little bit about, because I think that's the one that resonates most with leadership, especially. Abby, do you feel like you've gotten your return on your investment?
Yes, 100%. From saving time with weekly reports and weekly emails from different reports, like driver inspections and service compliance, to keeping up with documents like tag receipts, insurance cards, scale certificates. There's selling. When we sell a truck, we're able to pull a report on every single little thing we've done. Same thing I said earlier about being able to pull up everything we've done in the past 6 months. We're able to pull that report up for every service task that's ever been completed on that truck in 5 minutes, and it has helped us save trucks, tremendously, or sell trucks, in the past. When we're ready to upgrade to new equipment, we're able to sell trucks by saying, hey, here's all the information. We rebuilt this motor. This is everything we've done. These are all the parts that were put in it. And people are more likely to buy those trucks. And look, that's a savings. The more you can sell it for, the more you save. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just printing out work history and all that stuff, it's been definitely a return of our investment there.
That's fantastic to hear. Okay, I want to take a few questions while we still have some time left. So if you haven't submitted a question and you have one, go ahead and submit it now. You can keep submitting them in these last few minutes here. So let's dig into it, guys. So the first one is, what were the biggest operational challenges you were facing before you began implementing AI or automation into your fleet? So that one's for you, Abby.
Biggest operational challenges: documentation and scheduling. Just keeping up with all of our information, our weekly information, spending 80 hours a week on doing, that one task was probably the biggest challenge.
And it sounds like, your tech has solved those challenges, which is great. Yep. Dan, this one's for you. So what are some examples of repetitive tasks or bottlenecks that AI or automation can help address?
I think that we touched on a few of these today, but data entry is just a huge one. Not only being able to cut down the time that it takes to enter data, but just improving the quantity of the data that you're able to look at and use to make decisions. I also think just that communication between team members, making sure that things are clearly communicated, setting up automations that notify people of changes that are happening to assets, making sure that drivers are aware when a vehicle is available or unavailable and what the reason is. I think that that is really low-hanging fruit, where it's easy for people to set up automations that replace those previously high volume tasks.
You just answered 2 in 1, because I was just about to ask a question someone submitted about what low-hanging fruit do you recommend tackling first with automation?
Well, glad to hear it.
Yeah, great job. Let's take one more. And let's talk about, so this question asks, what KPIs should you measure when testing automation solutions? I think either of you can, or both of you can ring in on this one.
I'll let you get this one, Dan.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that one. I think that it is a lot of the same ones that you care about, because they should be solving the issues that you're having in your fleet today. So uptime is a big one. Automation should be helping with that. If you're communicating better as a fleet, you should be able to drive towards better uptime, because you know when vehicles are down, you can identify issues before they become a really big problem. And I also think compliance is another thing, like PM compliance. Abby's mentioned it a few times. That's something where through reminders, through automated communication, you can really make sure that your fleet is remaining compliant. And it's the same for inspections as well. We touched on the challenge getting drivers to complete inspections, and that is so important for any fleet to remain compliant. So yeah, I think there are a few things that the thing I would say is that it is really consistent with what fleets are focused on today.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're at our time, so I just want to thank everyone for submitting such thoughtful questions. And so we're going to wrap up here. Again, if your question wasn't answered, we will be following up with you individually via email with a response. And Dan and Abby, thank you so much for being here today. You guys were so great. I feel like I learned a lot. I hope the audience did too. And speaking of the audience, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar. And if you'd like to learn more about Fleetio or book a demo, you can visit fleetio.com/demo. And so I want to again thank Abby, Dan, and Fleetio for today's presentation. Also want to point out that this webinar will be available on demand on the Automotive Fleet website at automotive-fleet.com/webinars. And on behalf of the entire team here at Automotive Fleet and BBM, thanks everyone for joining us. We hope to see you again for another Automotive Fleet webinar, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.